We're live.
Good evening and welcome to the Black Crow podcast. Today you're hearing a slightly different voice doing the introduction. It's me, Toby, usually very much the monkey, but today I'm apparently the organ grinder. Aaron's having a little bit of a break from doing the podcast, just while he handles some general life stuff, because shockingly, general life's more important than toy soldiers. Who'd have thought that? But I'm joined by my person I will characterize as my glamorous assistant, just because I want to annoy him.
I know, I'll take that.
Yeah, and chief rules lawyer slash nerd, Sam Dickinson. Say hi, Sam.
I mean, I will take all of those. Nerd is a positive thing, and
Exactly.
at least I know the rules, right?
Yeah, I mean, it does help that we have at least one person that knows the rules within the team, so that when I inevitably get them wrong, I can ask someone who actually knows what they're doing.
Yeah, because you don't want to look up the rules. You just want to ask the question. Just like, Sam, Alan, how does this rule work? Can you explain it to me?
Why do you think I go in the car with Darren so much? It's so that he can tell me my rules on the way to the event. That's, come on. We know these are basic at this point. But today we are going to be talking about really exciting topic. We have had a couple of weeks of Pariah Nexus. There's been some major tournaments, both by UKTC and obviously by Glasshammer. Use the code BC Black Crow Gaming to get 5% off Glasshammer. Yeah, plug one already. Get the plugs in. That's what she said. But did we manage that? No, we did it in 3 minutes. We did it in 3 minutes. We're fine. So we've seen a couple of major tournaments, and Sam, I don't. Have you managed to, apart from Glasshammer, have you managed to get to any other tournaments so far?
No, Glasshammer's been the only tournament so far. Obviously, you've got the RTT next weekend, but which I'm very excited for. But Glasshammer's the only Pariah Nexus event so far for me.
Yeah, and there is actually they've extended the ability to sign up for that weekend RTT. But I think this evening is at midnight tonight is the last chance. So if you are free in Sunday in Norwich, then come on down, play the RTT. It's going to be really good fun.
I think there's like 35 so far, so big.
Yeah, there's only Sam there, so you probably win it.
I mean, there's a good chance.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have a good track record at EAGT.
Yeah, no, it's because you try and charge
Turn one, all the way
turn
to
one.
people that deploy on the back line. Yeah,
that's what we love. It's doing the Lord's work, I believe. But yes, if you do want to sign up to that, I'm sure someone can drop us a link in the chat for the BCP for that. But we're going to be talking about how the meta has developed and kind of what we're thinking we're going to be seeing. We were going to be discussing the list, but unfortunately they haven't quite dropped yet. But what we're thinking WTC is going to look like, because we've
got some hints from people, because like all the people playing can see the lists. It's just the general public that can't. So we don't have any actual lists, but there's been a bit of talk about them and some interesting stuff, it sounds like.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a really exciting podcast, just sort of chatting about our opinions. Sam and I are sort of Sam's been learning about combat from me recently. As the combat specialist within Black Crow Gaming, it's been my honor to kind of go through it. For those that don't know, I have, for the first time in my Warhammer playing career, picked up an army that has swords in it, which is terrifying. So I've had to ask lots of questions to my far well-versed colleagues on how do you do charging. Turns out you roll 2 dice. It's quite easy, actually.
Just roll sixes.
Yeah, just roll sixes. It turns out if you just roll sixes when you've got sustained hits too, shit gets funny.
It might be your first time dipping into melee, but it's also, you had another big first at the weekend as well.
I did, yeah. I was lucky enough to win the Peterborough Slam RTT 4. It looks like I've got 3 fingers up. I do have 4, I promise. That's what she said. And then It was a hell of a tight tournament, including a game against two of our teammates, Ray and Darren, who I'm sure Sam can attest are never a slouch.
I mean, I haven't beaten Darren yet, although we've only played the once. And I don't know if I've actually played Ray. But yeah, Ray's a very common tournament goer and very good player. So
yeah, he's well accustomed to the top tables at tournaments. And I think Darren's only recent loss was to Josh Roberts, I'm pretty sure.
that's
Josh
a
Roberts,
pretty great track record. So
yeah, Josh Roberts and now this moron. So yeah, well, I think I will hand that rather firmly to the list rather than me, because the Dark Angels in their state is very good, and I think actually that segues us really nicely.
So Dark Angels, I mean, do you think top Space Marine faction at the moment, or because Blood Angels, it's them and Blood Angels that are sort of the most popular?
So I'm gonna actually add another one to that, which is something that we saw a lot in Sheffield, and that's Space Wolves.
Really, there was a lot.
Yeah, disproportionate number of Space Wolves players at the top tables versus at the sort of the bottom, including Matt McCurdy, who is obviously, I think, the best Space Wolves player in the world. He drew with Jack Tight, who is the best Sisters player in the world. And obviously, Sisters, we would probably use that as the sort of the.
I mean, we're both in agreement that Sisters are quite high up. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think Sisters are the best in the edition currently. But I think they're also incredibly unforgiving. I think Sisters and Drakari are both very high up there, but they're such high skill caps that you're only going to see a small number of players with Drakari, a large number of players with Sisters, actually doing well with them. But I do think those two, so Drakari have definitely outperformed my expectations. Sisters are hitting where they are, and I've completely gone off the question that you asked. So
as I say, well, there's a comment in the chat that I could add in from Angron, who's Alex, which is Dark Angels are so good. Blood Angels edge them out, but Dark Angels completely shut down T-Suns and somewhat Vanguard Nids who are on the up. So, I mean, we didn't really.
It's gone from being my worst matchup to one of my best, and I'm so happy about that. Yeah.
Oh, have you played T-Suns recently?
No, not yet. It's all but like literally, you talk to a T-Suns player and you watch their like heart fall out their ass. It's hilarious. You're like, oh, by the way, you know my death blobs that like just murder your rubric marines. Yeah, they've got a 4-up, feel no pain to.
Yeah, all of the stuff against psychic. It's horrendous because it's against dev wounds, it's against psychic. You've got so much like survivability there. Because do you run the librarians as well?
Yeah, that's where you get it. You get it from that and the watchers.
Yeah, because definitely knights just have that like little watcher guy, right?
So. Yeah, I mean, so if you are playing the lion, you just have it as an aura as well. 6-inch aura for all units in there.
You weren't playing the lion this weekend, though, were you?
No. So overall, very sadly, I think the lion has had to be dropped across most Dark Angels players. However, Hellblasters are not much better for rubric marines to deal with because they're 2 damage, wounding on 2s, sticking you on your invuln, and you die each time you fail on invuln. So they are somewhat nightmare. And also, if you kill them, they might shoot back. Shoot.
Yeah.
And when they're sustained and lethal, it gets quite funny quite quickly.
Gladius Biologist?
No, just a simple lieutenant with fire discipline.
Right. Okay. Does the lieutenant give them anything other than that?
Lethal hits.
He gives them
lethal hits. Yeah. And then the fire discipline gives them sustained hits. And then in the Devastator Doctrine, they explode on 5s and 6s.
That sounds gross.
Yeah, it's disgusting. I actually went into this tournament to prove a point that Hellblasters were shit, and then they turned out being my best unit.
You win all your games.
they were my best unit in every game.
Oh wow, okay, best unit even with like the new ICCs and Deathwing Knights.
Yeah. I mean the Deathwing Knights and the ICCs were incredible, but the Hellblasters, much kind of exactly like the Lion did, but a heck of a lot better. They added an extra dynamic to my game. They gave me that strength at range. and it suddenly. I mean, like what I was chatting to someone recently, and he said the most powerful thing you can do is kill your opponent's models in their turn. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fights first, Overwatch, those kinds of things. Sure, okay, fair enough. I understand the point. Not sure I agree, but I understand that it's a very powerful thing to do. Hellblasters not only are brutal on Overwatch because they are sustained and lethal on Overwatch, rolling 20 dice if there's all of them. When they die, they fire on death most of the time. 66% of the time they fire on death.
Do they get the fire and death when they Overwatch? But they still hit on sixes, I believe.
They do still hit on sixes.
Is it Overwatch strat? I think says for that phase. Yeah.
They must hit on sixes, yes. So that is the case with Overwatch. But when they're exploded, like everyone knows that sustained in Overwatch is completely busted.
Especially if like the target happens to be the oath target, right? Like if you're trying to finish something off and you don't quite finish it and then it has to move, you're just like, well, let me finish it now.
I mean, the thing is that unit does just finish it. There's no two ways about it. I would love to see what the maths has to look like for a unit. I mean, it would probably be a unit with -1 damage, but even then, I'd love to see what the maths has to be for units to fully survive.
I mean, big things potentially like knights and that
yeah,
sort of stuff potentially.
Yeah, it's impressive unit, but yes, I do agree. Blood Angels are overall better in the meta currently because they can.
Sorry, go on.
No, you go.
I was thinking like I think Blood Angels might also. I don't know if you think about the mirror, or not quite mirror, but Blood Angels versus Dark Angels, because they both seem really popular. They both seem popular at the top. I think one of the key parts of which pips the other will be what they're like into each other, which is favored.
It's hard to say. -1 damage is nasty against both Blood Angels and against Dark Angels. And both armies have access to it with either Deathly Knights or Lamatis.
Yeah.
Then it's easier to pin the Dark Angels player is what I would say, and that's how I would try and handle a Dark Angels player.
Interesting.
Because they can't. So if you're a Sisters player, for example, and I think this is why Blood Angels do pip Dark Angels at the moment. If you are a Sisters player, you go, okay, I'm going to Zephyrim jail you. Done. And it's like, cool, okay, they're going to take too long getting out of that. They will get out of the Zephyrim jail. They will slaughter what's ever in front of them. But it will take them too long to get out of that Zephyrim jail. And they cannot start things in Deep Strike, which is their main way of moving around the board if they're in that kind of game. Because there's too many Sisters units that screen them out. So Dark Angels doesn't have the best Sisters matchup if they play it the right way. If they don't play it the right way, then they just walk them because
but I mean that's almost every matchup's that. Like if you don't play it right, you're gonna lose.
Sure, but I think it's got to be that very specific. You must jail them.
Very technical
points. Yeah. So that is one that you do completely win in the movement phase, and if the Dark Angels player is able to get one.
Welcome to melee armies. It's all of the movement phase.
No, totally. But it's so that's huge. And Blood Angels don't have that problem because they just go, cool, we've got jump hacks.
Yeah, they're very hard to pin down, very mobile, very deadly.
That was quite the meow.
Did you hear him?
Yeah.
Hello. No.
I can see him staring at you, going, "Give me a fish, father. Give me a fish."
He's been asleep all day, and I was like, I really need him to be like sleeping now, but he was like, nope, I'm waiting for my moment.
Yeah, it is his time to shine.
But yeah, back to Warhammer.
Back to Warhammer. Yeah, so Blood Angels, and I think if we talk briefly about the WTC split, obviously because you only have one Space Marine, there's a fuck ton of Blood Angels. There's a few Dark Angels,
but I think there's only two. Because they've got the different seeds. I think there's only 2 Blood Angels in the top seeds, which is what 10 teams, 10 countries. There's only 2 Blood Angels, and I think one of them is Manny, and I've forgotten who the second one is. It might be but a lot of them are running Dark Angels. I think Lenin's running Dark Angels. I can't remember off the top of my head. To be fair, I wish I had the list in front of me, but this is all just word of mouth as well. So might be wrong. Don't hold me to this, but I think there is a surprisingly there's like 20 Blood Angels. It's by far the most popular army, but I think there is a weird split based on the supposed top teams.
I mean, I think in
Seas.
teams, it's some amount of like, what is your Space Marine army doing? Because
Yeah, as I say, because that's definitely going to be doing different stuff and what else you're bringing. Because I think this is probably one of the most diverse WTCs we've had in a while. I mean, obviously last year was slammed with everyone's taking the same like 7 armies. It was very early 10th. But this year it is like, I mean, I think between America and the England, there's like only like one faction that's the same, stupidly small, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I think it's going to look super.
By the way, that's including detachments. I just got to qualify because it's like they're using different detachments for the same factions, I think, as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true, and I think very fair as well. It's difficult to say how that's going to sort of move across into singles, and I think one of the best resources for that was Fireside Chat with David Gaylard and Vic Vijay, obviously given that they are highly talented players, and it was that there's certain matchups that they just so it was the Thousand Suns was the example, previous edition, not edition, you know what I mean, 10 rather than 10.5. And they said, you know, we wouldn't bring Thousand Suns in singles because it has too many poor matchups, but in teams it's perfect because you can kind of dictate where it's going to go a little bit more.
You can babysit it, yeah.
Yeah, and I think
sorry, go on. Say your gut thing first.
Well, my gut reaction is that I would choose Blood Angels if I want someone to do a quick 20-0, so that then they can come round and start trying to support other players, because I don't know if Blood Angels have been fully solved yet.
I mean, these guys are probably playing hundreds of games. So, I mean, solved is, I think the game is actually in such a good state that I don't think there is a solved, because it is sort of I think we have a very, very complicated rock, paper, scissors at the moment, in the sense of like, there's a lot of good lists for a lot of different factions. And so we have situations where, okay, this list is good into that, but then if I took this other variation of this list, I would be bad into that, but I'm good into this other thing that's popular. And you end up with this weird balancing act of, well, we need to cover all of our bases, but also cover them well enough that we win, on average 5 out of 8 of the games.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like the potential for that Drakari list, you know, Sisters Scissor Drakari, then, you know, Space Marines Rock. I'm really surprised you didn't bite on that, Sam. I'm sad. But yeah, no, I think there's some really good matchups going on in there, and I think it's going to be a really good dynamic 5 days of play. So obviously it's worth mentioning that our sponsor Glasshammer, use the code BlackCrow Gaming to get 5% off at checkout, are actually going to be doing the streaming with one of our friends, Tom Lohman from 6++, and then David as well. So that will be phenomenal, I imagine. I don't. So coming fresh from a conversation with Charles, he and I will never forget what David said to us just before we went on stream, which was, "Don't worry, you're allowed to say cunt." That is his parting salvo before he mics you up and pops you on stream.
Well, I mean, that was good for you because you were quite drunk, and yeah, I'm sure lots of interesting words were said during that stream.
Yeah, I think the worst one was, "Hey Gareth, look, it's Brokeback Mountain," as I hugged him from behind. So you know, it was, you know, Gareth was a tender and passionate lover, so it was wonderful. Anyway, back onto the meta.
Yeah. So we talked a bit about Thousand Suns and if we're talking about WTC, I think so. Thousand Suns have been quite a popular. I mean, you'd say obviously like
Yeah.
I think Dark Angels are holding them back a bit probably at the moment. And there's probably some other bad matchups for them. But I do think they're a very strong army into most matchups. Which is but the list that I'm hearing about in the WTC could shake up the way people play. People might see them and start copying them, because I think that a lot of them have 3 Vortex Beasts, which is, I mean, the most I've ever seen before is 2, and a lot of lists would have maybe 1. So seeing 3 being like, I think there's Canada, America, and New Zealand are all running 3 Mutilith Vortex Beasts, and I think some of them even have Forge Fiends in the list, is what I heard, but like that sounds crazy to me. So I think the term Magical Chaos Knights was thrown around on the Stat Check podcast.
Okay. Interesting.
I want to see that list, but it's not out yet. So
same. I'll be honest. If someone said, "Ah, this is my list," or this is what you're going into at a GT, I'm
you
not
wouldn't
sure how
be
panicked I would
going,
be.
"Oh, that's super scary," but there's clearly
Yeah.
something there. But also, when we talk about
Magnus is there too.
yeah, I mean, skew lists, like they're not necessarily built for, well, they're definitely not built for singles play. So I think we might see people copying them and then not having as much success with them as they would expect, because they're like, oh, this is a top list that won all of its games at the WTC or whatever, and it's like, well, piloted by someone that's played hundreds of games on it, babysat into the right matchups, so it only played matchups that was good for it maybe, and then obviously potentially crushing, but that doesn't mean that you're going to do anything in singles.
So one thing, sorry, I don't know why this has just popped into my head, but I think it's because you were talking about skew lists and babysitting, and I think it's a really interesting one. I'm desperate to see how the list looks. Nassim on Imperial Guard.
18 Bulgren.
I mean, I see it. Bulgren. So I played against 12 Bulgren, 1 unit of 6, 2 units of 3 with my Dark Angels first time I brought them out, and I think that's honestly been the closest someone's been to holding back my go turn. Like I was stuck, and then the Lion came in and saved my backside by killing like multiple tanks. And the Deathwing Knights, I think, just like absolutely just tore a Lehman Russ to pieces. But yeah, okay.
I mean, I've watched Angron bounce off Bulgren, so they are very hard to bring down without like weight of attacks.
Yeah, it's a 4-up -1 damage, right? And like, what else is 4-up -1 damage right now?
Definitely nice.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, you don't have 18.
No, I've only got 10, and I don't think I'd want 15 right now.
I'm want 15.
I'm probably going to purchase another 5 just because, like, A, they're fun to paint and fun to build. B,
which is always important.
Yeah, I do like. I could see there being a space in the future once there's like a nerf where suddenly it's 15 of them.
Would have thought that would be the other way.
Well, so as in like you would drop, say, the Hellblasters, but that might be my, because I think you need the Deathwing Knights for the Dark Angels to work. Yeah, because you've got to be able to go, right, okay, I'm going to sit on this. So your screen goes forward, screen kills their screen, and then dies. Then the Deathwing Knights go in, kill or hold whatever threats there, and exchange resources. Usually at that point, the Inner Circle Companions have charged something and just wiped it, and they've had a favorable charge because the Deathwing Knights are clocking down what they need to clock down. And then at that point, you then move the ICCs in, finish off whatever's usually in the middle, and by then it's just mopping up.
Yeah, so anchoring down what they, but it doesn't really work if we're talking about like post nerf, which we absolute guesswork on that. The nerfing them would be probably a points thing, because they're not going to go back on like the weapon changing and stuff like that.
Oh,
Probably.
100%. I think they go up 10 points. I think Azrael goes up 20.
I mean, Azrael's been. I don't. What is his points?
You won't believe it. It's 105. It's
My Master
stupidly
Executions
low.
is 20 points more than that.
It's so low, and he gives
He gives him a
entire
4-up
unit-
invuln
He gives the entire unit a
and
4-up invuln,
CP.
extra CP, sustained hits to the unit, once per game, 4-up feel no pain to mortals.
That's insane.
And his combat profile is
Yeah.
amazing.
Wow. Okay.
And his gun's not bad as well.
I would have
His
guessed
gun's
like 170, 180. Like, I genuinely, I would happily put that like an equivalent model in my army for that amount of points.
He is
It's
pretty spicy.
you're spoilt for having extra CP, because seriously, not having it sucks.
Well, yeah, no, I know. Well, it's a weird one, because I feel like in Pariah Nexus now, there are so many ways to get extra CP, and it's usually by scrapping cards.
Yeah, but that's the only way for an army like mine.
Well, yeah, but your army's cringe and no one likes it, so I'm to break it to you. But I also feel like that's a problem with the index lists, and that will catch up. And I think once you have a codex, which we'll need to talk about shortly, not the World Eaters Codex, but a codex that was announced today.
We'll get to that definitely. Although I think I don't think the World Eaters Codex is far. Like,
no, I think
from some interesting conversations I had with people, hints were dropped. But yeah, well, the going back to like the start attempt of just seeing, 3 stratagems and CP generation and things like that. And the CP generation is a big one at the moment, because the being able to recycle a secondary every turn is huge. And like, that's, if I do that, that's all of my CP for that turn that I generated gone. So I get 1 for every battle round if I do a flip, and it's like, it's just not enough. It's a huge difference having that extra CP and just being able to flip it. And then if you still get something you can't do, you then just you can't just go for another CP at least. But it's just I think Pariah Nexus is very is a lot tougher to score secondaries than the Leviathan, and that means that having that extra CP to cycle cards is just that much more important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I do also think the hardest to do cards you can get rid of for free.
Thankfully, yes.
And then there's, I think
Mark for death.
yeah. So let's be honest. The 2 that you're almost always going to get rid of are Mark for Death and Recover Assets.
Yeah, I think Recover Assets, anyone that keeps it is, unless it's like the end of the game for both of those, it's a disaster. Like, the Recover Assets is such a bait. Like, the amount of times where I've played someone and they've gone, I'm recovering assets with these 2 units, I've gone, I'm going to just long ball into one of those units and just go, you're not scoring that secondary, and you have now the card for the next turn, so it just triples secondaries.
Yeah, 100%. And I like, honestly, the fact that containment is so easy
good.
compared to that one. It's just like, oh, containment is the easiest 6 points you'll ever score. Yeah. It's so silly. You just go, cool, containment done.
It's so quick and so easy.
That's what she said. But yeah, no, it's I'm actually quite enjoying the way that secondaries are. Although, because I've played quite a few games now. Let me just pull this up.
I mean, you got some high scores at the weekend, right? So, I mean,
I
didn't see many hundreds.
There were, so I got, over the course of Pariah Nexus, I've had in actual tournament games, I've had 100, and that was against an Orcs player in round 1 of Slam, where he put a bit too much in reserve.
An Orc player put that much in reserve.
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange one.
The Dread Mob, or
No, it was Bully Boys, and there was the
interesting.
Teleporter Mega Knobs in reserve. Yeah,
It's
sure.
pre nerf.
No, this is this weekend.
Oh, this was this weekend. Sorry, yeah.
And then 2 units of Storm Boys.
I can see it. You want to bring them because they deep strike, right? So it's
They
just like
deep
a
strike.
objective play.
I get
guess.
it, but I
Maybe
would
not
want
great
them
against.
running forward in the center to kill the screen.
Yeah, you got to get
That's
rid of
the
like
point of Storm Boys.
scouts
They're
and
killing
things like that,
yeah.
right?
Then a truck with 5 knobs and a war boss in reserve.
What? It's just gonna rapid ingress it in, I guess.
Well,
Oh.
I couldn't in my game. I'll come on to that in a sec.
Okay.
And then there was there anything else? Gaz was in a battle wagon with 3 mega knobs
On the board.
on the board.
Yeah.
Because I think he had nearly 1,000 points. Like he told me he'd had to do the maths to make sure he didn't have over 1,000 points. Oh yeah, a big blob of boys with a weird boy and a war boss. Well,
in strat reserve.
Yeah.
Odd. Interesting. I mean,
yeah.
that might be really like I think that's probably a decent way to play that army maybe into like shooting heavy lists because it might be only so much space to hide in your deployment zone, and it lets you get around the board a bunch if you're not the most mobile army. I mean, orcs are usually fine-ish on that, but like I can see the idea behind it, but I wouldn't ever do it into a melee versus melee matchup because you're just giving the board presence to your opponent.
Well, I just went, I'm going to move around the board and I'm going to, because most of it's in strat reserve, right? So I'm going to.
You're not the most mobile to. I mean, you can screen him back into his deployment zone, but you're not covering the whole board, right?
That's what I did. I just screened him in his deployment zone and said, right, okay, it's turn 3. You got to bring him in. Roll 9-inch charges. The ward doesn't really matter because can't have answer charge.
Yeah.
So
it's extra attack still, but yeah.
It's extra attack. You got to roll 9-inch charges, and he didn't roll any.
Ouch.
So I just went, cool. I get a clap back now. And it turns out Inner Circle Companions, Hellblasters, and Deathwing Knights are pretty good. So
shocking.
Yeah, no, who'd have thought? Although Gaz did, not Gaz, sorry. Azrael killed Gaz and then died to a wrecking ball, which was quite funny.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it was very entertaining. But yeah, so that was a bit of a strange one, I would say. And that's the only time I scored 100. The others, they were sort of 90 plus.
I think 90 is a good place to get to, but it's not. It's very easy to just max out. Like either the primary or the secondary. Most often secondaries, you get like 44, 48. Like not quite that. I mean, that's my experience when I went winning games. I mean, the one tournament I did manage to get to for since the changes was Glasshammer, so it was WTC. So I didn't need to get 100. I was just getting, it's all about getting more than the opponent. So the strategy of holding them down was good, but if you're struggling to get past that 90 point, it does make those secret missions dangerous as well.
On secret missions, I'm just having a quick look at my wins, and where they were. I mean, my losses were actually quite tight. I've lost in Pariah Nexus. I've lost I've lost 3 times actually. Once against Darren in practice where I was still playing Firestorm and he 20-0'd me, and that's my worst loss. That was 100-40. But then my actual end tournaments, 78-66 loss and 76-72. That was playing Firestorm. And I've actually not lost with Gladius yet. Touch wood.
I'll see you on Friday, yeah.
Yeah. No, I've already been dibsed for Friday.
I don't really want to do it on Sunday.
No, I was going to say me on Sunday. But yeah, no, it's been. I mean, I think that demonstrates how powerful Dark Angels are right now.
Yeah, they are a scary faction. I think that they're one. Every like time you write a list for an event, you want to be thinking about what you're expecting to see. What are the popular strong lists, and then what's your plan for dealing with them. I think Dark Angels is definitely one which you want to be having some sort of plan for,
Yeah.
because it is not an easy matchup, and it I don't personally, as worldy as I don't think the matchup's too bad. It becomes very technical on who can get charge into what, but I'm faster, but I'm squishier. It's like, yeah, so it becomes a weird interesting interaction. But I think there's a few armies out there that really struggle to deal with Deathwing Knights and just get slapped by the ICCs. So they need to come up with something, and I think we're going to see even more teching into those damage-free weapons are basically the best thing into that army, right? Gets into the ICCs, does 2 wounds each to the Deathwing Knights.
Yeah. The problem is
Predators and Forge Fiends back on the table.
Predators, maybe, because actually Predators no, because no, you're not saving them on 2s, I guess, because they got the extra OP. You're saving them on 3s and maybe 2s if you AOC the Knights, and then I mean, it's difficult to say because shooting's the best way to deal with the Deathwing Knights, and I think it's things like not carnivores, the other one,
Brigands.
Yeah, brigands with their Melter 4.
I just
goes bye-bye.
One.
Yeah,
but
'cause
the problem
obviously they can't
is you've
even
got a
do
4
stuff.
up invuln, right? You pass the 4 up invulns on them, you're fine. But if you
Yeah.
fail, you start dropping bodies. But I think actually that's a good point. Chaos Knights, because the faction doesn't have a lot into anti-armor, right? Like if your whole army is vehicles, it's not. I mean, definitely Knights have the anti-vehicle, anti-monster 4+, but that's not going to deal with 6 carnivores.
See this big smile.
Yeah, I'm wondering where you're going.
So yes and no. Vehicle spam is, I think, a matchup I'm more scared of. The problem is they are. So I played against Triple Rogue Dawn, and that was the one that I won 100 to 28. No, not 100. Sorry, like 93 to 28. And armor is just not a problem. It's weird, but like because of lethal hits and +1 to wound, and anti-vehicle, it's just not been a problem. So like this is why. So there's a big thing in the Dark Angels group, and I was talking to Alan about it. For those that don't know, Alan is sort of the administrator for the big Dark Angels group on Facebook. Very, very talented Dark Angels player. And he was saying how a lot of people online are saying the swords are better than the maces, because of that extra attack. And then you talk about the vowed objective for Inner Circle Task Force, and then Lance for the Gladius version. And I just went, absolutely not, because you want the Lance to be available for your ICCs, because then they will just overkill a knight.
Also, doesn't take into account when you get charged. Right? If I throw Angron into Deathwing Knights without the maces, he's fine.
Yeah.
But with the maces, oh crap, I can't do that without thinking it through.
Unless you keep up the CP to give him -1 damage or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Or make sure that he hits first. That I don't let you interrupt or things like that. Like I think one of the lists I played against in Glasshammer had 3 units of Deathwing Knights. 2 of them had the maces and 1 of them had the swords. I think if you're doing 3, I can see the argument there. But even then, I just wasn't nearly as scared of the sword unit as I was of the. That was the one that I was like, I'll deal with that when I deal with that.
I mean, my pick would always be the 4 maces and the great weapon, because the great weapon is 5 attacks, hitting on 2 sustained hits, strength 6, AP2 damage, 2 death wounds. Like, whew, that's tasty. But the maces are, I feel like this podcast has very quickly gone from let's talk about the meta.
Let's talk about Dark
watch,
Angels.
let's watch Toby masturbate over Dark Angels. Which
Well,
is
it's because
fair.
it's the meta. There's a lot of Dark Angels that we're seeing in the meta, and also we can only go off our own expertise for so much, right? Like we can theorize about stuff. I mean, let's move on. I mean, there's one thing we haven't started talking about yet, and big news that came out today, which is Demon Hunter 2.0. That's not what it's actually called, but the
Inquisitorial agent.
Inquisitorial agents. I was going to say Imperial agents, but Inquisitorial agents codex, which is, I mean, very interesting. Like, I mean, we've got one little article. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but Deathwatch being consolidated, so they're not going to have their own index anymore. They're going to maybe be there might be a detachment in there that's good for them. But they said
There is Auto
yeah,
Xenos.
Auto Xenos would be that one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The battle forces do look really good. It's kind of cool. Like some of those models are really nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to say because right now you look at kill teams and you go, they're shite. And I mean, like,
New rules. Who knows what will happen?
Well, this is it, right? Like, it could, but the problem
They've
is
shown us very little.
Because you can then ally them in with any faction. It's like any Imperial faction could suddenly have access to amazing Space Marine units. Do I think that's going to happen? No.
I don't think the Space Marines are aware. I think we're going to see Deathwatch about as much as we see him now, which is not very much at all. There'll still be some that probably try and make a Deathwatch army, but I do see some very interesting, like with everything getting with it, all of Imperium have access to it. So if there's stuff that's good in there, you're just going to see it across the board. Like, with how popular Imperium factions are, assassins are quite popular at the moment. They're good. I mean, imagine if they do, but you can add in sister squads or certain sister squads. You can add in certain Grey Knight squads. You can only have one in the thing, but like,
still do it.
You can still do it. So it's like if you're playing. I don't know if Aaron's watching at the moment, but or he'll watch this back later. But if you're playing Custodes and you don't like the Sisters of Silence and you just want like a small, cheap unit, like might be a lot more options. Or if you're playing Sisters and you want a big Terminator block, oh, here's a Grey Knight Terminator block. They just teleport in and sit there or run up the field. I think it's gonna do some, and Imperial Knights. Love their little friends of Imperial agents to just
some Space Marines,
awesome
right?
stuff. Oh yeah, exactly. Like there's especially if they've got decent rules.
Yeah, 100%.
It could fill some interesting gaps in these very skew-ish armies that are like, oh, my whole army is T3 and 3 up save 1 wound. Oh, but here's a 2 up 4 up 3 wounds with some psychic ability, like toughness 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think Games Workshop have somewhat made a rod for their own back, because those units in Inquisitorial agents always have to be balanced for every single faction, which is really every single Imperial faction, which I think is really tough to do.
Nightmare. Absolute nightmare. Like this problem already exists across the board. I mean, it has existed for multiple editions with demons, and the amount of times where demons are crap, but they're taken non-stop in some other chaos faction.
Nurglings or
Nurglings, or back in Ninth, the Flamers with Thousand Suns. And we, like I say, like assassins at the moment are quite popular around. Just knights in general is an interesting one where you go, okay, if we nerf like knights in a way that they can't ally in, but then it just makes their army bad. It's like, well, you got to find. It makes that balancing a knights list so much harder.
No, agreed. And I mean, so having said that though, let's caveat it. When yes, demons, but CSM, right? At the height of their power in 10th so far, they haven't really allied anything apart from maybe the changeling in.
CSM Nurglings.
Sure, Nurglings as well. Apologies. But
Sorry,
they
I
haven't.
missed those Nurglings.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, more so, I was talking more. They weren't putting in Thousand Suns. They weren't
Oh
putting in
no,
Guard.
yeah.
They weren't putting in World Eaters. However, recently, obviously, we have seen Josh Roberts using
Rubric.
rhinos with rubrics to get the ability. If there is a way to do that, because obviously, if an Inquisitor can join a unit, that unit can then go in, and that unit can go in a transport. It can go in a transport, things like that.
Yeah, there's going to be some
There's-
interesting things. I don't like. We'll have to see how well they like solidify all these interactions, because nothing's worse than people finding. I say this as someone that actually does this, but finding the weird interactions and actually exploiting them. There's levels of that, in the sense of clearly not supposed to happen and silly, and but but you can get some interactions where it's like, oh, this model is crap, this unit is crap, put them together in this weird interaction. Oh god, this is broken.
Yeah.
And it makes it really, really hard to balance these two individual things until you go, well, no, don't let this interaction happen.
Oh, well, I completely agree. I mean, so that Dark Angels army, the only units that are actually really good in a vacuum are Azrael and Deathwing Knights, because Hellblasters need the enhancement. Hellblasters,
Yeah, they're not out of that detachment. They really struggle, I think.
Yeah, they really need the enhancement there to just sort of put them over the edge. But they also, most of the time, they need a 4++, because otherwise they just fall over to shooting. And you want them to not really fall over to shooting. You want them to fall over to your own shooting, which is weird, but yeah. And then Inner Circle Companions, without librarians, possibly with Judiciaries, but I think just with librarians, they're terrible, because they don't get their -1 to hit if they're not led. They're only +1 to hit into character units then at that point. And they are just 3 wound T4 3-up saves.
So I played into a list with 18. One had Azrael. One had a Judicia or
Yeah, fights first.
and the other one I think had a chaplet. Say, if that makes sense. I don't.
It does make sense. It's wrong, but it does make sense.
I mean, to be fair, that unit didn't get much of a chance, because it
No, it wouldn't.
dropped out of a vehicle and got hit by 2 other units straight after.
Exactly.
And was slaughtered. But combat tricks, yay. Remember to get out of your vehicles when you're fighting against a combat army that has speed. Top tip. But yeah, like you when you every time I play against them, because of the size of the bases and what I'm used to playing against, like where I'm just expecting them to be like toughness 6 and have like wounds and feel no pain or something, lots of like toughness, like tough things to kill, and you're like, oh okay, I can just hit them and they die. Okay, I'll take that.
They need that invuln. They need
Yeah, they do need that invuln.
librarian. So I posted my list and my result. And I think the top question I've had is, do ICCs need the librarian? And every single time I've just gone, you can try it without, and your ICCs will just die.
Like they'll still hit something hard and kill it probably, but then the clapback, and if they go into something that fights first, or you're risking like an interrupt, and yeah, they just or Overwatch, and it's suddenly a lot more. They can't tank it properly.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It needs that invuln. And personally, I don't like to put Azrael with them, because I don't like Azrael that much in harm's way. He's extremely good, don't get me wrong, but he is killable. He only has toughness 4 and he only has 6 wounds. He is extremely killable.
Oh yeah, it's my first goal in every game of against Dark Angels is where's Azrael, and I'm going to put Angron or Master Executions or some character into that squad, and I'm going to like Heroic Challenge or Epic Challenge and kill him.
Yeah, exactly, which is why Azrael hides as much as possible in those kinds of matchups. And probably against World Ace, you put him in the Hellblast. Excuse me, sorry.
You put him in the Hellblaster blob.
Is it past your bedtime, Toby?
It nearly is. We've got 9 minutes, and then I'm going to bed. So honestly, mate, I had such a late one last night, so I didn't get to bed until like 11. Just really late.
Out partying after winning, right?
No, we just had to drive back.
Yeah.
Peterborough's quite far.
I'll be feeling that next week.
You will be. But that will be it. That will be hopefully a good laugh.
I'm really excited. And once again, for anyone in chat, if you can make it down to Norwich next Sunday, there's still a few tickets left. I would highly recommend it. We're gonna have a great laugh. Yeah, and plugs just as well. I remember Train Forge discount code. I've forgotten is it just Black Crow as well? So I don't know if we're going to be using any
Train I cut out for a second there.
Yeah. Last Summer Gaming, 5% off on top of the 20% off.
If it comes up to 20%, if it doesn't always, just as a little caveat, sorry. I hate to say it, but yes,
it's on top of whatever discount you already get, which is really good. And then Train Forge do some amazing terrain. I don't have the promo video queued up, but it does if you're planning on buying terrain, we have a discount code. And
just go and watch one of the battle reports. Just go watch one of the battle reports. You'll see the beautifully done terrain. There's plenty of different sets. If you do watch the WTC and you absolutely love it, then you can buy a WTC set from Terrain Forge. There's UKTC sets. So there's lots of different sets that you can get, and you can get that really nice little discount. It's also extremely packable if you are a TO and you're looking for a terrain set that's not going to just smash in your box. Then this is a really good one. It's high quality, so obviously it's a little bit more expensive because it's that higher quality.
But you want that because that way you're buying one set instead of one, and then replacing it with a better set later and spending that much then.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, Terrain Forge is really good quality, and I know that they are looking at bringing out the mats again with the deployment zones on.
I mean, those deployment zones on mats are so helpful. I wish that they all had it, but I understand the oh look, GW just changed them all.
2 weeks after someone got his mat.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. But effectively, there's like one the same that's popular. There's Crucible, and Search and Destroy as well would be the same. So you've got two popular ones.
And Dawn of War.
Nah, that one changed.
Oh, Dawn of War changed. Shit.
Yeah. I love the new Dawn of War.
Oh yeah,
much better.
So do I now, Sam.
Yeah.
Aren't you scared of me saying, yeah, I love a combat map?
No, I'm happy. I love to see it. More people converted. More blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne, right?
Well, I mean, how did it go when Angron fought the lion in the books? How did that go? Remind me.
How does it go if you put him on the table?
It's not on the table, so it doesn't matter.
I don't read the books. I'm not a lore person.
You actually not know that story?
I do know what happened. Yes.
Okay, good.
I'm not oblivious to it. I just haven't read the books.
Very cool.
It was. I listen to lore podcasts where they tell me what happens in the books while I drive.
Equally right. The lion should do that.
I mean, Angron can come back.
Exactly.
So Angron, he should always lose.
Yeah, Angron is the perfect bad guy because he's like Team Rocket. Angron is literally Team Rocket. Yeah, Lion stabs him in the face and he goes, "We're blessed enough again." Back into the warp.
So BTS 5 in the chat. Lion fights first on table and still beats Angron. Incorrect.
Yeah, no,
does not kill Angron on average when he attacks. I mean, he could, but it shouldn't. And then Angron should slap him down after that. Without his -1 damage, he is. I thought it was -1 damage before, but it's still okay. -1 to wound.
No, it was -1 to wound. He used to be.
Don't even need to pop +1 to wound then anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a real shame. But like because you look at it and you go, throw up a vulnerable save. That's ridiculous. Then you roll.
Fail them.
Yeah, it's like saying, "Oh my God, Space Marines versus normal guns, they'll never die." They do die. You can roll 1s and 2s.
I feel like 4+ are more likely to spike and be like you not fail any than 3+.
Yeah, I feel like that there is just a sod's law out there because
I mean, the Lion, when I played him at Sheffield, he died in 2 out of 3 games. One of them very ignobly. So yeah, no, that was not good. He got harpooned by a Norn.
Oh, like the tongue attack thing.
Yeah, no, the shooting,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
harpoon,
I
yeah.
think it is something. It's like I don't know.
Yeah, he got licked to death.
Yeah, in my mind, that is literally just opens its mouth and just shoots a barbed tongue at you. I can't remember if
Yeah.
that's actually that might be the
there is a horror spec I think that does that.
yeah.
But yes, that was not a good day. But yes, and that's why I think the Hellblasters managed to just.
Is that the swap that you made? Was I can see it as well because like having not something I've done, but a lot of World Eater lists are getting popular with like 2 Forge Fiends in, and Forge Fiends. I'll be honest, like the World Eater ones, they have no buffs. They don't do any fancy shenanigans. Like they just make people do battle shock tests. But if they having some aspect of shooting just keeps your opponent honest. I think a lot of people will go, oh, against the World Eater, I can just stand out in the open. It's great. And then you go, well, that's what they do against me. And I always remind them that my Rhino can shoot. But then against someone with 2 Forge Fiends, they actually have to play a bit more honest and can't just sit out in the open where's most optimal for them to block me, for example, because I can just get some kills for free with some shooting. I do have 2 unpainted Forge Fiends that I might paint up and try the list in an event, but not for this weekend because I haven't had the time to do that.
I'd definitely be interested to see that. I know that Lord of Skulls has had some discussion and like that.
I've used them in an event. I went 2-1 into 3 Death Guard lists at that RTT. Yeah, because that was my luck against Nurglings. He's good. He's way better not on the UK scene. Like UKTC terrain is bad
very
for him.
hostile for it. Can you tell that we've started talking about World Eaters because I've started yawning?
Yeah, I'm talking more than you now because you're tired.
Exactly. And I'm actually good. I'm going to take a minute. It's not painted yet, but I'm going to quickly show my conversion.
Yeah, show off your. We've talked a lot about competitive 40k and what we think's going on, and let's do a bit more hobbying aspect. And let's have a look at some of the cool stuff you've been making.
Well, so there is a tournament coming up in Woking, and I'm not going to say what we're doing because it's going to be a surprise for everyone outside of BCG. Everyone in BCG knows, but everyone outside of BCG is a surprise. But I'm actually going to be playing Raven Guard at that tournament. And this is I'm playing Raven Guard. I'm playing Dark Angels, but I'm playing them as Raven Guard. And that's difficult because I am both playing the Vanguard Spearhead Detachment.
You're playing Raven Guard, but some of your models are you're gonna be painted like Dark Angels.
So how do I get around the fact that I need a Caven Shrike? And he is in fact a Raven Guard model. Well, Samuel, let me tell you this. What I did was I went on a little trip up to Forge World at Warhammer World. Have you heard of it?
I've never been. Definitely
Never
didn't go
heard of it.
every week
Really nice.
because I grew up in Nottingham. No,
It's
never been to
lovely
what's
spot.
that? Bugman's? What?
Yeah, honestly, I think we might have discovered it. It was really really
little niche place out of the way.
Yeah, tiny little LGS that most people haven't heard of. And I was like, okay, let's look at some Horus Heresy stuff. And I'll try and see if I can do some Risen, which are, for those that haven't read the lore, they are the Dark Angels that were still loyal to the Lion, but were on the wrong side in the battle for Caliban. And they just didn't know. They just got attacked, so they just went, we've got to defend ourselves. So the Lion thought they were traitors, so they became fallen, but they weren't actually traitors. The main one being Zabriel, who is now sort of the Lion's left-hand man.
Right, he forgive them, didn't he?
Yeah, that's why they're called the Risen rather than the Fallen now. So I took some inspiration from one of the characters in Son of the Forest, one of the Assault Marines that they had, and I have done this chap.
Wait. I do stuff on the fly and make your screen bigger so people can see it.
Give it a go.
Bear
Once it's
with
painted,
me.
I'll paint some photo. I'll put some photos. I haven't painted them yet.
It's getting bigger.
Oi oi.
All right. It's nice and big on the screen now.
So this is a Legion Moritat, and what I did was I used a sword from the Deathbit Knights, and there's a bit of a story here in that the tournament organizer for that tournament loves his orcs, absolutely loves his orcs to pieces. Gorgeous orc army, absolutely stunning. Has lots of like clothes for it, you know, really big into his orcs. So I was like, what would make my meme army even funnier if most of the models that I converted were murdering orcs or Gretchen? So I have, as my lone up lieutenant, I have a risen cipher who's just shot a Gretchen in the chest. But yeah, so this chap is a Legion Moritat, jumping on with it with a Deathwing knight sword. He's stabbing into this orc, and the kind of the story behind it is he shot him in the head with the plasma pistol, which then moved around and cut the hand off. And then he got him with a sword as well. So a little bit of overkill. But,
I mean, orcs aren't the easiest to kill. So,
well,
got to make sure they're dead.
Exactly. That's like in all the books that you have to make sure.
Yeah, as I said, clearly read the books.
Yeah, well, that's always the way. So yeah, it's. I think it's one of my favourites. That we're brutally murdering orcs. And then obviously, Sam, you loved my assassin, didn't you? My Callus.
Yes, your amazing assassin.
Yeah, this is my Callus assassin. He's called
Move that
Jimmy.
close to the camera. I don't think people will quite appreciate this.
Oh
yeah.
So, look at those albatross arms.
I'm sure everyone agrees in the chat that this is definitely Callus.
This is definitely a Callus assassin. I can't see it. Look, like it's got Callus assassin, right? Is armed with poison blades and a neural blade or something like that, and a special pistol. This character right here has a special pistol, a blade, and it's on a 32mm base.
I mean, the base sells it for me, obviously. Like,
if I give this fucker a massive ponytail, do you reckon?
I mean, if you give it a ponytail, I mean, what else is a defining feature of the assassin if not the ponytail?
Well, this is what I'm thinking. So I'm probably going to give him. I might green stuff some bits, like I might do a cloak. But basically, what I want to do with this particular character is, again, if you've read Son of the Forest, get the Lion's Guard, who were the humans that, when the Lion didn't really have any Space Marines apart from Zabriel around him, were his bodyguard. Obviously, the Lion, shockingly, does not need a bodyguard. But he was like too
Probably doesn't
awkward
care
to go.
For them either.
He was his whole personality has changed. It was really weird. But he was like going, no, I can't reject these people and make them feel like I don't care about them, even though I really don't need a bodyguard. So the Lion Guard are actually quite badass. Like, there's a mild spoilers for Son of the Lion here. But on the first world, it's been conquered by chaos, and then the Lion inspires an insurrection by all the kind of like refugees that are sort of hidden around the planet, and they managed to just completely trash this chaos army, which has both traitor Marines and cultists in, and mutants, all that kind of thing, and they just managed to beat the living daylights out of them. Just as normal dudes. And it's like, and then when a chaos spaceship turns up, they go fuck off and try and shoot it. The Lion's not there at that point. They literally just go, I can't remember what curse they use, but they use some sort of quite funny curse word. And then shoot at this chaos
ship, like a big one as well. And it's quite entertaining. It's they are quite a cool little group of guys. So I think I want to try and make him into one of those characters.
Nice. I'm sure. I'm looking forward to seeing the army when it's finished.
Thank you.
Like, I love a good like hobby project when it's not like, oh, I need to get this army ready for this tournament real quick, and it's just like you can take your time and work on stuff. Really cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. So I'm going to start spray painting this shortly because my army's done for the weekend because obviously it's the one that I just played. So I'm going to get this. I've
if
already
you would change your army like a week after doing so well.
I nearly went, okay, I don't need to now like play this army in an RTT.
Yeah, you could bring the bunker list, yeah.
Well, yeah, it wasn't going to be the bunker list, but like, yes, there were options where I was going to potentially go, let's just play a bit of a fun list. But that would have involved more painting of models that I don't care about, magnetizing models that I don't care about, and then potentially coming up against like friends that I want to have a good game with, and just not giving them a good game.
That's fair.
And like I don't want to be in that situation where someone goes, well, I paid for 3 good games of Warhammer and I played that dickhead with his meme list. And it's like, I know everyone goes with different ways of having fun at RTTs, and there is no one way to have fun at an RTT. But I want to always try and play what I think the prevailing way will be, which will be at a competitive event, competitively.
Yeah, I mean, I don't imagine that there would have been an issue if you wanted to bring a silly list. I think one of the best things about like our community is we have a very wide range of people playing all kinds of different stuff, and which is really, really good. And it's really, really positive.
Oh, well,
The main thing is having fun with the person, not necessarily worrying too much about the game itself. It's just choice soldiers at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's why in this RCT that I'm doing down in Woking, I am playing quite a spicy fun with, and it is very, very fun. My jump pack captain, you can see I've magnetized this arm so I can pull it off. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it, but he is ex Death Watch, and all those like cute little kind of add to the story, but like I'm still going to try and absolutely muller you, even though there's no chance I will, given what's in the
Look
list.
at you being a full-on hobbyist,
I know
aspects of all of it, putting lore into your army, and
I love the lore. I treated like I'm so happy Dark Angel's Arrest here, right? But I will always play Dark Angel. Like I played.
Oh yeah, you've been playing Dark Angels the whole time I've known you.
Yeah.
And I don't think I think I've known you most of the time you've been playing Warhammer, at least in tournaments. So
in tournaments, I've always played Dark Angels. I played Salamanders for a bit and the reason I played Salamanders was because I loved their lore.
Actually, yeah, Salamander lore is really cool. I mean, there's a lot of the Space Marines factions have some really interesting. I mean, Space Marines, right? Poster boys.
They've been written
all
about
the Horus Heresy series and all of that stuff, and
yeah. But now, I think for me, I've come at a really good time for Dark Angels because it's a time when they're rewriting the lore in a way that I like as well. Like the Lion is back, but he's not the Horus Heresy Lion. He's not that like
Charles Dance Lion.
Well, he's not like he's quite cruel in the Heresy. And he's like, he's very, very much like no, let's just kill Conrad. When they capture Conrad,
I mean, probably would have been a
maybe, but there's parts of him where there's another one where he and Gulliman are sieging a planet, and Gulliman goes, right, well, we've got this plan. Lion, what have you done? you've just virus bombed the entire planet, all that kind of thing. So he was the Emperor's exterminator, and 40k Lion is very different. Like his personality is a lot more not subdued, because he still has that like edge to him, but he is a lot more of a father figure. And I just really like how they've done his character development, because he's gone, oh my goodness, look what's happened. All of these ideals that I had, which then were involved in causing the Horus Heresy, were involved in these collapses, everything like that. There's clearly something wrong with it, and like seeing a Space Marine reevaluate, and a Primarch at that, reevaluate where his head's at is just and it's the same with Gooderman. It's really interesting seeing sort of that how does a 30k character react to being in a 40k universe, because it's gone so belly up from when they were in the golden age. How do you go, well, this wasn't father's dream, this wasn't what we were meant to do, this isn't what all of my brothers died doing. It's really interesting how they're writing. I'm very excited for sort of the next loyalist that they bring back. I think it's going to be Russ, but
I agree. I would be very surprised if it wasn't Russ. I mean, it's the easiest one to bring back, I think. There might be a couple of others that are not like confirmed dead, but
most of them you can bring. So you can bring. They retconned Rogel Dawn dying.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. So he instead of dying, he just lost his arm.
I thought the whole point was that all they found was his arm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but he was pretty dead.
No. As in, like, so he was retconned. So it was all they found his arm because he was killed. Then that was retconned to all they found was his arm. Ooh.
Oh, okay, right, I see. But Russ is just lost. So
well, same with Vulcan, same with Jagatai,
well,
same with Shrike.
Yeah,
not Shrike. Sorry.
no, I know that. Khan.
No, that's Jagatai.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
He's in the webway.
Yes. Yeah. He's going too fast, right?
I'm interested to see what they do with that, because they have also kind of opened that back, because there was the Iron Throne and the Webway project.
That was with the Drakari, though, wasn't it?
Yes, the Iron Throne is the Drakari Golden Throne, because they're trying to find out ways that they can protect Komarov and Chaos. And then there's a breakdown of that alliance, and even the fabricated now spoilers. The fabricated general of the Adeptus Mechanicus gets killed, along with everyone else from the Imperial faction that's involved in that. So there's a big thing where the Golden Throne might break, and B, now suddenly there's openings in the webway. There was little hints and little sort of sprinklings of ideas that it might be Russ in Son of the Forest. Vulcan could just come back because he's Vulcan.
Yeah, but I if Vulcan comes back, I would hope that he's just ridiculously damaged because of everything he's been. No, because I mean, if you think about it,
through so much. Would you know he's been?
This is my point.
He's been mostly fixed, right, from when that happened.
Who?
Yeah, I think so. He basically was recuperating.
Wasn't he captured by the Dark Elder?
No, he was captured by Kurz, and Kurz is the one that tortured him.
Oh, that was in the Heresy, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was
where is he now? I thought that's where he was. Was like
no. So he
some Drakari pit
died. No. So Vulcan went missing during War of the Beast. He was aboard fighting a Krork, or whatever they're called, and then the ship exploded. That was the last that anyone saw of him. So he's MIA, presumed KIA.
He can't be KIA because he's Vulcan.
Because he's an Eternal, but also he was an Eternal that did get killed, but then they found a way to bring it back. So yeah, that was a whole thing in the Heresy.
Interesting when you write 30+ years of lore, it can get a bit messy sometimes, I think.
Yeah, I did really like, and I'm not going to say what happens for this bit, but I did like one of the last interactions between Magnus and Vulcan. I think it was both very heartfelt, quite vindicating for Thousand Suns fans, and very interesting to see the dynamic between A, father and son, and B, brother and brother. So yeah, that section of Magnus's story, I think, is
Yeah, I've heard a bit about Magnus's story, and I mean, to be fair, a lot of the chaos stories are just like, well, fuck. No wonder they went heresy.
well. This is the thing, because that's the whole dynamic. You know, if there was a son that was more likely to actually not fall, it was going to be Magnus, right?
Yeah.
Because he got a bit pissed off, and understatement of the century, about Prospero.
He was just trying to help as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
and
he fucked up.
Corferon was just
So.
a bumhole. And then, he that moment with the Emperor, right? Right at the end of his sort of heresy story is incredibly poignant. So yeah, sorry, we've gone massively off competitive.
We've. I don't know if this is the first time on one of the Black Crow podcasts where we've just started delving into lore, but
it's because you got me on Dark Angels, man. You get me on Dark Angels.
Don't get me started talking about Angron though, because that's a heartbreaking story. But I mean, like, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to bring up about like what we expect to see in the next few tournaments, I guess?
I mean, I think the only thing I would say is that I've not talked about Dark Angels enough.
That is not true. I think we need to veto that conversation.
No, I would say that maybe we haven't spoken about Sisters enough. But I think that is still emerging. Bringers of Flame are busted.
Bringers of Flame are doing really well. The other detachments, I mean, like, I think on the Army of Faith is actually like sub 50% win rate.
Yeah, I think the points increases just sort of shagged the other ones. So there needs to be that rules rewrite, and then they can sort out the points. And we know that's coming. So that's no disaster, and I don't think Sisters players are overly upset about it, but the internal balance of that book, because of the points increases, is quite poor. So I think
Ryan's sorry, it's just still on Sisters.
No, you go on.
But Ryan in the chat has said, what about the pivot rule changing up again?
Yeah, it probably will.
No, it has. Well, kind of has. So for was it Tacoma, they changed it. So I imagine that will be, I think the way I put it was, once that's translated, I imagine that will be pushed out to everyone. But in the next balance, in a way, it changes, because it just makes sense. Although the next one's supposed to be points only, but whether they haven't stuck to that for a lot. So
I firmly disagree. I love the pivot rules. My impulses have never been better.
I mean, so the pivot rule, I think, has a lot. Like, I would say 95% of it is like great.
Yeah,
like, makes life easier, makes the game simpler. And they even wrote it in a way that would make the game it would be right. They wrote it in a way, it's like, oh, take the pivot characteristic, but also all of these things have the pivot characteristic too. They could have just gone, oh, Raiders, Doomsday barges or whatever they are, Doomsday Arcs, and like a bunch of other stuff that's just egregious with 0 pivot. Here's a pivot stat. They could have made it 1, they could have made it 2, they could have made it 3, whatever. It's not. It's something that they've done in the past. I mean, we're talking a long time ago. They had when I think it was 5th to 6th or 6th to 7th. I really am not sure. They changed armor. Now we don't have armor values. We have toughness. That happened in 8th.
yeah.
But before that, there was armor value. But they introduced something called hull points. And that basically went, instead of you being able to blow up a vehicle with one shot, you could no longer do it one shot. You had to do like 2, 3, depending on the number of hull points. And they literally brought out just a big list, every vehicle in the game, how many hull points it has. They could have done the same with just big list. Here's the pivot stats on all of those things on that list. And yes, it's another document that we'd have to look at, but you just put it in the app. And it would just be there on everything. It would have just been much better.
So I do get that, but I do also think that they're trying to avoid that situation, and I think that's why they've just gone all circular bases.
But that still applies. I just mean there's exceptions to it.
Yeah, but I think they are trying to get away from that. The exceptions, because it's like exceptions are then the things that people do tend to forget. So I think that the Tacoma, which is if you are not infantry and you are bigger than a 32mm base, don't get free pivot.
No, fly base.
Was
So, for example, things like Angron and Magnus and
Oh.
Dreadnoughts on circular bases,
they're fine.
they still get the free pivot. It is literally just fly bases that are bigger than 32mm.
Is an impulsor on a fly base?
No.
Kind of is though.
It's
It does have a flying stem.
Does it? So I would say that applied. I don't know. It looks like it's sat on that base. Also, I don't know why an impulsor has a base.
So they can make it float.
So well, then it's a fly base.
Yeah, right. Because the whole thing is it's a repulsor network, which is where it gets the name. Like the things that are on the sides of it doesn't have tracks because it's a repulsor gravity.
Like the repulsor used to have the fly keyword. Oh, I lost the sound.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, as did impulsors, right?
Yeah.
Used to have the fly keyword too. So they're very much as precedent. I think that they shouldn't get free pivot, and they shouldn't get free pivot. I'm absolutely using it at the moment.
It makes no sense because literally they have a hole that's like goes over the base. Like they're not encapsulated by the base, so it means there is a bit that the whole point of the reason the pivot exists makes no sense for things like impulses.
It's perfect. It's beautiful. It's balanced, just as the Emperor intended. But yeah,
for things like Angron, Magnus, single infantry models that you just want to be like, let me just scoot so my weapon isn't sticking out this wall. It just makes sense. It should be. It's the way most people played it anyway. But now it's just written the right way. Because before, if you had a Deathwing Knight and you wanted to rotate the way he was stood, you had to count that as movement technically, which was no one ever did because it was stupid. But technically, that was the way the rules were written.
Yeah, no, I think luckily the Warhammer community is able to go, no, I'm not a complete penis. And
I'm sure someone was at some point on one
table.
100%.
100%. Yeah, I completely agree. But anyway, right, well, I think that is possibly the perfect ending.
Wow. As I think Ryan put it best, simplified, not simple.
That will do. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. We have been the Black Crow Gaming Podcast. We've been discussing the best faction in the game. Sorry, the best faction of all time. Sorry, the most beautiful faction in the whole entire world. No, we've been discussing the developing meta. Please no. We've been discussing the developing meta and what you can expect to see at the top tables going forward. And thank you so much to our sponsors, Terrainforge and to Glasshammer, Black Crow Gaming, as both of our discount codes.
It's BC. I think it's BCG5 for Terrainforge.
BCG5 on Terrainforge.
Black Crow.
Black Crow on Glasshammer.
Josh thankfully put them in the chat for me.
That will do. That will do, pig. That will do. So yes, there are discount codes. Please do use them because it helps with awareness for us. And it helps get our sponsors out there so that they can keep being involved with us. And share us far and wide. Tell your friends dogs. Tell your grandma if she likes Warhammer. And you can tell your cat, Sam, if you want.
I was just seeing if he was around.
Yeah.
He's left now.
So yeah. And if you want to get involved in Black Crow, drop us a message on Instagram. Drop us a message on Facebook.
Yeah. Come say hi to us in tournaments.
Yeah, come say hi to us at tournaments.
We're friendly.
I mostly won't call you a cunt. Like I might.
More likely to call himself one.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, no, do come say hi to us. I think the next tournament that we'll probably all be at in force is LGT. So keep an eye out for one of these different shirts. Sam and I are modelling the different ones that we have. There is also a white version
white one,
that
yeah.
you might have seen Chris wearing. And there might be another one soon. So just keep an eye out for that. And yeah. Thank you so much for watching. We really, really appreciate your time. If you got to this point, well done on listening.
Very long goodbye.
Yeah, this is the long goodbye. This is like the lion leaving. But yeah, I've been Toby.
I'm Sam.
And thank you so much for watching. We've been Black Crows. Bye for now.
Bye.